Welcome to the fantasy audiobook. Marvel, Kryptonian, Man of Steel and Travel Across the Dimension. Chapter 41. Luther naturally refused these appointments. However, he also took the opportunity to promote the Special Forces hiring service of Emperor Company. Emperor Company had already developed this business before, but everyone thought that this kind of hiring was unnecessary. Now, Emperor Company pushed such a service to him, and they felt it was necessary. The most acute security issue in the world today. Emperor Company said that it is professional in this area. They are actually a security and strategic consulting company. Don't think that it seems to be a fuss just because two mutants made such a big fuss. These big men are more sensitive and radical than ordinary people to this kind of extraordinary injury problem. The reason is very simple. Even if ordinary people are worried and afraid, they don't have the capital to protect their own safety. The most they can think of is to run away if they can. If they can't run, they will be a hero again in 18 years. But the big men are different. They have huge capital and enjoyment that ordinary people dare not even think of, so they are also very cautious about their lives. Mutant attacks, and the constantly awakening superpowers counted by SHIELD data. These questions were like a sledgehammer, hitting the fragile nerves of the bigwigs. How can ordinary bodyguards deal with the attacks of superpowers? This is the most concerned security issue at the moment, but the Emperor Company has given us the answer: super bodyguards. The bigwigs were all interested in watching the demonstration video. The super bodyguards were ridiculously fast and powerful. Most importantly, they were not afraid of bullets. They could be meat shields at critical moments and could also run away with their employers. They could see that the strength of these super bodyguards was much stronger than human enhancement technology and superhuman drugs. So they immediately understood the ideas of the Emperor Company and what Luther meant. That is, don't covet my technology, but I can make concessions and let these advanced technology modified people of the Emperor Company be bodyguards to protect your safety. Many times, words don't need to be so clear and explicit, just through behavior or other things. The bigwigs are best at this tacit way of communicating information. The old men who were originally troubled by private ownership and their own safety suddenly felt that this was not bad, at least it solved the core conflict. Although the price of super bodyguards is a bit expensive, for example, a C-level super bodyguard costs $10 million a year, and a B-level bodyguard costs $100 million a year. These super bodyguards are all mass-produced transformation technologies, so naturally they have similar abilities. Luther chose the ability of the transformation people in the Korean movie, which fast speed, strong strength, strong regeneration ability, and will only die if hit on the head, but there is no ability to control objects with telekinesis. Luther thinks that this ability can be used as a separate series of products. Such a unique superpower will become the symbol of the Emperor Company in the future. The classification is also to stimulate consumption for those masters. They are not short of money, so they must want the best. With such a comparison, they will not think it is too expensive. It is not ruled out that there are also ideas to attack super bodyguards and want to study their technology to crack the Emperor Company, but that will activate the self-destruction program of the super bodyguard, which is a kind of anti-theft technology applied by Luther at the genetic level. Although the masters are still a little unwilling to Luther's concession, the number of orders to hire super bodyguards is very large. All the super bodyguards Luther prepared were sold out at once. Almost no one was interested in the C-level super bodyguards, and the B-level and A-level ones were out of stock. It seems that these people are much richer and more afraid of death than I thought. The technology will not be obtained by outsiders and spread out, and when the time comes, these super bodyguards will return to the Imperial Company, which is equivalent to the Imperial Company using this money to help itself train cyborgs. Even the playboy Tony Stark hired 2 A-level super bodyguards for Pepper and his uncle Obadiah. Of course, after knowing the existence of superpowers, Tony Stark also began to look for ways to target them. However, he has not yet completely entered the state of being cursed by knowledge, so it is not yet to the extent that Tony Stark can get whatever he wants. And his thinking mode has not yet jumped out, and he is still thinking about how to study weapons with high power, high mobility, high penetration, and can be used in cities. After all, from the perspective of superpowers, weapons with high mobility and high penetration are the most effective for them. The matter of the super bodyguard naturally triggered another round of heated discussions, and now the hot topic has become why America doesn't hire Monarch to do routine security work. It's just playing with public opinion. Luther can do it too. More importantly, Galvatron and Megatron have joined forces, and the entire network is discussing this matter, which has led to the public's herd mentality being stimulated, and they have also begun to be misled and guided to think that it is a very good thing to let Monarch be responsible for routine security affairs. Of course, America can't compromise like this. Just kidding, manipulating public opinion is just a means for them, which does not mean that they will be influenced by public opinion. The masters of this country are still those big tycoons and masters. If they really agree to do this, then won't they have to pay a large sum of money to Monarch every year? Routine security affairs include many aspects, and how to judge them specifically is still an unknown, especially since the national conditions in America are still very complicated. The rule of law in each state is different, and there are also systems such as the police, the National Guard, the military, etc., not to mention the FBI. How to measure the law enforcement power of the Monarch Company, what to do if their scope of authority overlaps with other departments, and whether to give the Monarch Company privileges, etc., there are a lot of questions. Some people say that this is not very simple. Wouldn't it be better to just let them be responsible for super-powered terrorist attacks? Haha, if it was really that easy, SHIELD would not have argued with the military and the National Guard so many times on this point. Especially when this first thing was opened, it was no joke. The Monarch Company had the power of law enforcement, and many things had a name and privilege, which was equivalent to having an umbrella. What the masters care most about is of course whether their own interests will be affected. Public opinion is only one aspect. If it happens a few more times, it will probably be about the same. Luther laughed. He naturally knew why America had not responded to the wishes of the people. After Luther promoted the development of the Emperor Company, he didn't pay any more attention to it. Galvatron will run the Emperor Company according to his operation method. In this way, even if he is away for a long time, he doesn't have to worry about any accidents. Next, it's time to go to the New World. That's right. Luther plans to travel to the New World. There is no progress in the Marvel world and the Dragon Ball world for Luther for the time being, and he doesn't want to waste time. If he basks in the sun, his cells are already full of energy, and he needs to bask in the sun imperceptibly to become stronger a little bit. This speed of strengthening is not as good as practicing with Brawly and Cucumber. It would be great if I could travel to a world that can solve the problem that I can't merge genes with Brawly. Luther thought so. After all, a new world means new hope. Dragon Ball probably needs Super Dragon Ball to have hope, and Super Dragon Ball needs to be found across the universe, and he doesn't have that ability now. Then, travel. Luther activated his superpowers. In an instant, he disappeared from the spot. This time, the passage was much wider than the worlds of Dragon Ball and Marvel, and Luther had not become stronger during this period, so it verified Luther's idea that the size of the passage was related to the strength of the world he traveled through. Then Luther came to the New World. This world seemed to be no different from the Earth, and the familiar Chinese signs on the streets made Luther very familiar. Back to my own world. Luther had completed monitoring the information of the whole world, and had not obtained any useful information for the time being. However, when he asked passers-by where this place was and heard the three words, Juia City, Luther knew what world this was. Super Seminary, or the Hero Company, or the version where a big chrysanthemum appeared in the sky at the beginning. Luther did not expect that he would come to the world of Super Seminary. How to say this world? Science seems to be very developed, but in fact it feels like folk science, and even feels that folk science is better than it. However, it may be that the cosmic parameters of this world are different from those of the real world, which is why those situations occur. Super Seminary World. I wonder if the super gene technology can help my genes and Brawly's genes. Luther immediately thought of this, especially the highest technological creation in the Super Seminary world, the Big Clock. This celestial-level supercomputer is the highest technology known so far. Even the sacred knowledge treasure house of the angel civilization is not its opponent, and it is far behind. So Luther felt that his hope might be on the Big Clock. The problem is that Luther does not have the ability to navigate the universe now. Whether it is crossing or teleportation, he needs to have been to that place before. Even if he wants to take action against the god of death Carl and directly snatch the big clock back to the Marvel Universe for Galvatron to study, he can't do it now. Super gene technology. This thing can be tried, the problem is who to try it. Luther has a super brain and an incredible memory ability, comparable to the celestial level supercomputer in the super seminary. The problem is that his major is not suitable, and it is difficult for him to invade and get the knowledge he wants. Angel. Luther thought of the idea of taking advantage of the angel. As long as he finds a rich angel woman, he can get super gene technology and knowledge by studying her. Now, it is probably impossible, because Holy Kesha is still there, and the angels have not fallen into trouble, so it is not good for him to get close to them. By the way, I have to hide my dark plane information. Fortunately, I appeared suddenly, and there should be no dark plane information left in the super seminary world. Luther remembered this setting. In the dark matter plane, there is a medium that will quietly record everyone's behavior and thinking. Advanced civilizations will know how to collect and use this information, or intentionally erase it, and use it to place weapons or databases. For example, the Holy Knowledge Treasury is placed in the dark plane, or the super gene engine is placed. The sub-biological dark plane is similar, but it is located in the dark plane of the void. Angels can read the past history of a person or a world, and many of them are read from the dark plane. Of course, it is more convenient to directly invade the existing database to read. Moreover, the dark plane can store things. For example, the Holy Kesha's knowledge treasure is placed in the dark plane, and those who can access the dark plane can encrypt the private dark plane, which can prevent the information from being easily read and can also be used as a storage space. There are many applications of the dark plane in Super God, such as dark communication, which is built on the dark plane. Because the basic line structure is different, dark communication is higher than the general science fiction such as laser communication, quantum communication, neutrino communication and the like in terms of security and smoothness. Super soldiers are people with super god genes, with combat capabilities and superpowers beyond ordinary people. You can refer to what Morgana said. The reason why they are called super soldiers is that they are designed to be steel bodies, even divine bodies Lena, and invincible bodies Sun Wukong. The computers used by the high-end civilizations in the Super God Academy are basically dark matter computers. They implant dark matter computers into genes. This is the so-called divine power, that is, the gene system. The highest level computer in the known universe is the celestial level computer. At present, no god should have implanted the celestial level computer into his own genes and turned it into a gene system. In terms of effect, dark energy is widely used. It can be said that it is the most important thing for god-level civilization and powerful aerospace civilization to traverse the interstellar space. Super soldiers can only look down on the universe by combining the power of dark energy, otherwise they will be beaten by mechas. It can be said that dark energy has forced a cheat for organic bodies, otherwise they will only be beaten by mechanical technology. Then let's take a look at the specific application of dark energy. It can store data. If the opponent has dark data, the dark energy analyzer can be used to directly spy on the opponent's data to judge the strength standard. The play explains that dark energy can carry out attacks such as natural elements such as fire, discharge, etc. If it is stronger, it can also do things like erosion and darkness. Then there are gods. This is a special point of the super god universe. For atheists, religious gods such as Jesus, Allah, and Buddha are all metaphysics, but spiritual sustenance and self-comfort created by humans when facing cruel reality, and they are usually disdained. And director Saw provides another perspective on God. God is caused by the evolution of the times, and is the product of technological evolution. This is the most talked about word in it, but it can be equivalent to super gene life. This is to be clear when watching this drama. The ability of these gods to surpass ordinary people can be understood as a kind of technology. A technology built on some set physical laws, rather than illusory and elusive. This drama is a science fiction type, based on scientific fantasy. And these super genes have built in some different basic abilities, such as driving dark energy for their own use. Reina's various abilities to drive stars are similar, but Teoti does not have this gene. Armored Armor will also have built in some computing clouds to assist in some slightly complex calculations, usually used to solve its own weapons. Advanced armor computing clouds will also have higher computing speeds. But they are definitely not as good as warships like Skyblade 7 and Demon No. 1. The strongest computing cloud is the Great Clock located in the Styx galaxy, followed by Kesha's Sacred Knowledge Treasure House. There is no difference between super soldiers and divine bodies. Different civilizations call them differently. It is more appropriate to call the higher level divine bodies. The genetic emphasis of each level of super soldiers or divine bodies is different. They may be downgraded after facing different damage attacks, mainly the Void Engine or the God-killing Void weapon targeting super genes. That is, the super gene engine is destroyed, swallowed or decomposed. It may have been very hard against the Leon-level weapons before, and it will be inserted into the ground or pierced through the body after being downgraded. Invincible body is a standard configuration of many third-generation super soldiers, but not all third-generation ones are invincible bodies. The sub-biological engine is a technical realization of invincible body. There is no invincible body in the strict sense. Invincible body depends on the level of attack. Jie Shaolun also said that he is not immortal. It depends on your definition of death. Kesha with a sacred body will also be blown to pieces in front of a supernova. Also in Shang 1, Teoti's Howl King described, the so-called invincible body is nothing more than based on the infinite physical light energy, relying on the super gene system of the dark plane to control the light energy reshaping, which belongs to Shinhe technology. The divine body is indestructible, with various antibodies and immune to radiation, and can get rid of the limit of physical death and rely on energy to maintain life. The strength of gods and super soldiers is nothing more than super genes plus super weapons plus super computing power. Then there is a simple understanding. The super god universe is a computer, the main biological world is the visible space inside this computer, the so-called dark plane is the path space where the data inside this computer runs, and the void and anti-void are the application programs that can modify and create the background data and paths of this computer, but they are all incomplete void programs, or imperfect. Angels or Carl Void can only modify the data and running paths of the universe computer, and cannot create new data and paths. If they follow the original path, they will be corrected by the universe computer, so they can only modify the rules for a short time. At the beginning, Shaolun's anti-void was to close all kinds of data running paths, anti-biology, anti-void, anti-dark energy, all of which closed all kinds of data running paths. The 0 on the computer is interpreted as off, and 1 is interpreted as on, so Jie Shaolun has the ability to suppress dark energy and biological energy. Juxin and Jie Shaolun built a relatively complete void program for the computer of the universe, allowing Jie Shaolun to create new data and running paths, so that the computer of the universe cannot be closed. This is Shangxin. As for how they got their weapons, the human body is a computer, and the weapon is data. It is decomposed and compressed and filled in the background and saved. When it is used, it is back to your hands after a solution and reorganization. According to Juxin, the real world under the eye of insight actually has a dark matter world. The understanding here is like a picture in a computer. After being unlocked by a program, it is actually a bunch of codes, arranged in a certain order and rules. For example, a car in real life is essentially dark matter arranged in a certain order and order. What does a fully equipped third-generation god represent? Individuals travel the universe, with a lifespan close to eternity, dark plane computers that surpass most space civilizations, weapons with the power of star destroyers, and armor that can resist attacks from most space warships to avoid technological detection. What is the situation with the fully equipped fourth-generation god? Celestial computers, knowledge accumulation of thousands of years of civilization, various high-tech weapons, almost impossible to be destroyed by conventional physics, and only fear the super-celestial body of black holes in the universe. The most terrifying thing about the super god system is that a qualified god can rebuild civilization in a very short time, because most of the knowledge and resources of civilization are in the hands of gods, and gods have the highest military force and survival ability of civilization. Conventional science fiction world battles are aimed at destroying planets and civilizations. How do gods in the super god system target them? It is a double insurance for individuals and civilizations. Only when the main body of civilization and the main god of civilization are destroyed at the same time in a short period of time can the civilization be considered destroyed. Like Shinhe, the main body is destroyed, but the big clock is there, and space can be reborn at any time. Angel civilization, Keisha is offline, but the knowledge treasure house is there, the main body of civilization is there, and a new divine Yan is created immediately. So don't look at the collapse of the plot and combat power of the super god in the later period, but the adaptability of this civilization system is really strong. Put it in the three-body universe, that is, encountering the restart of the universe, ordinary means cannot completely solve the super god civilization. On the contrary, if the main god is more stable, there is a chance to reach the strongest sequence in the universe. Luther's method of hiding his dark plane information is very simple, that is, the Kryptonian's omnipotent biological force field. Of course, he felt that it was not safe enough, so he also implemented a magic information blockade. After all, he has never been in contact with the dark plane, and Luther doesn't know how the dark plane works. It's still the same, let's see how the yellow sunlight in this world affects me first. Luther mused. There are too many mutated versions of Superman. Some mutate into a pure energy body, and some mutate into a magical Superman, all due to the influence of different sunlight, not to mention that he has now traveled through other universes. This is very exaggerated. Who knows what impact the cross-universe sunlight will have? Anyway, he is probably the Kryptonian who has experienced the most sunshine version, so it is normal to worry that he will lose control. Thanks to his super brain, Luther instantly found a suitable target for his own action. The scum hidden on Earth, the ancient slayer god Sumali. Although Tianj's technology has lagged behind, for me it is a breakthrough from 0 to 1. What I need is basic knowledge in this area. Luther thought, then burst out with super speed and flying to reach Sumali's location. Kryptonian's ability to collect information is unparalleled, but most Kryptonians will not use their super brains to analyze the huge amount of information collected by super hearing and supervision. They will only let their super brains directly filter out unnecessary information. For a long time, the super brain only has the wisdom of how to fight, go up to fight, and solve all problems with fists. Luther has been inspired by Bulma's father and Dr. Jarrow in his scientific research thinking, and fully understands that a super brain needs to use or cultivate the thinking and computing power of his own brain. Although this is boring, Luther has a lot of time, so he is happy to develop his super brain. Now is the time to pay back. Galvatron may not have been able to search so fast, but Luther has already found the incognito Sumali. Sumali is different from Juia, who only likes to play with angels. He is also open to women from the earth and has established several empires to play with. Mr. Su, you were great last night. Sumali stood up, and the 5 young models on the bed were all awakened. Then one of the young models said coquettishly to Sumali. Rich, generous, and good-looking, they wanted to develop a long-term relationship with Sumali. But Sumali just smiled, gave them a sum of money and sent them away. There are so many beauties and he is not short of money, so why should he turn around? You're doing well. Suddenly a voice made Sumali's pupils shrink. He turned around instantly, and the next moment, a hand grabbed his neck and pinned him against the wall. Boom! The wall that was supposed to be broken became as hard as iron under the action of the biological force field. Sumali, who was pressed heavily on it, groaned and felt that her internal organs were knocked out of place. Is this the constitution of Tianja? Luther looked at Sumali. He had just handled her gently, but Sumali, a second-generation scumbag, was almost seriously injured. Too fragile, super warriors compared to Kryptonians and Saiyans. I just don't know how strong the thick-skinned Galaxy Force and Nuoxan God of War are. You. Who are you? Sumali's eyes widened and she said with difficulty. I'm a Kryptonian. I came to you for the angel's super genetic knowledge and technology. If you just give it to me, huh? Luther suddenly felt something breaking into his biological force field. A silver dagger flew toward Luther with ripples in the air. Wormhole transport technology. Ensu silver dagger. Luther reacted, yes, Sumali's appearance does not mean that he cannot use wormhole transport technology to counterattack. It's just that he didn't expect Sumali to have such computing power. The Ensu silver dagger hit Luther's palm, but the biological force field completely held up the Ensu silver dagger, causing Luther to hold on to the short knife. How is that possible? Sumali looked at the Ensu silver dagger caught by Luther in disbelief. He was invincible with this short sword. He hacked to death more than 1,000 female angels led by Hexi like he was chopping melons and vegetables. Even the flaming sword could be cut in half. How could anyone catch this thing with his bare hands? I used chi to strengthen the biological force field to catch it. This thing is quite sharp. Luther looked at the Ansu silver dagger in his hand with some surprise. It had a gaudy shape. If Ansu silver wasn't powerful enough, this design wouldn't be able to kill anyone at all. Interesting, it turns out it is this kind of atomic structure. However, falling into Luther's hands meant that Luther got a lot of opportunities to secretly make money. Combining dark silver with thunderbolt steel, I wonder if this supermetal can compete with the original adamantium alloy. This knife looks very sharp, but it's a pity that it's of no use to me. Luther gently inserted the Ansu silver dagger into Sumali's shoulder. Ah, Sumali hadn't been injured for many years, and the battle was wasted, which made him cry out in pain. But this was not over yet, because Luther gently lowered the Ansu silver dagger down, as easily as a hot knife cutting butter. Sumali's arm was cut off in front of the blade. After Sumali was prepared, she just gritted her teeth and did not continue to scream in pain. Can your brain keep a secret? Luther began violent brainwashing. Magic was a completely untouched field for Sumali. Angels might not be able to resist it, not to mention someone like Sumali who was so many years behind in technology. Luther didn't care what happened to Sumali, so he got a part of what he wanted from Sumali. It's a pity that this guy is not a civil servant among Tianja. That's right, the smart Tianja has been killed by the angels. If Sumali has this ability, it is impossible to be exiled even if she is in love with Hexi. Quote, Luther got some things, but not much, even pitifully little, because Sumali was responsible for fighting, not research, and even the super gene engine of the angel civilization at that time did not need to learn so much knowledge. This resulted in Sumali having at most a little conceptual theory. What the heck, theoretical science is the most difficult to turn into practical science. Luther was very unhappy. Become an Suyin. So he used transformation magic to turn Sumali into a large piece of dark silver. Of course not humanoid. When I make a deal with the angels in the future, I can trade you to Hexi. Luther smiled and looked at the large piece of dark silver in front of him. With so much dark silver, it should be no problem if you want the technology of the angel civilization. Holy Kesha wants to collect all the dark silver into her own treasure house of sacred knowledge. However, he also knew that it was impossible to obtain too advanced technology and knowledge, and it was not necessarily how much the angel civilization valued this thing. There was a dark silver mine in Fraser's place. The only reason to trade with angels is because angels are easy to talk to. Holy Kesha will not rob someone just for such a piece of hidden silver. She herself has to maintain justice and order. If it were the Liang civilization and the demonic civilization, they might just grab it first. Of course Luther's strength can make them obedient, but Luther is too lazy to do that. Angel. The way to contact Angel is if Angel Yan comes to Angel International Group. Luther found a suitable destination and planned to go there to guard Angel Yan. Angel Nebula, Planet Erling. This is the planet after Tianji King Hexi retired. Sumali's dark energy reaction disappeared. When Tianji Wang Hexi was researching new things, her own space-based computing group belonging to the celestial computer reminded her of something. Sumali's dark energy reaction that she had been monitoring disappeared. This made Hexi frown. She didn't think Sumali had the guts to leave the Earth, because she had said that she would send people to hunt Sumali down if Sumali took one step out of the Earth. With Sumali's current strength, any third-generation high-level angel guard can deal with him. Then Hexi retrieved Sumali's dark plane information. Hexi turned a blind eye to the unsightly images in the dark plane information, and then she saw that Sumali seemed to be attacked by something. What is this? Hexi frowned. She couldn't even read the dark plane information even with her space-based computing group. She then became interested and increased the allocation of computing power to the space-based computing group. In the entire known universe, there was no way that she could read information from the dark plane. Not even the man-in-law could do it, nor could the god of death, Karl. It can only be done with a big clock. But Karl, the god of death, would not do this for a mere Sumali. Because once the clues are read, it will give the man a chance to burn him. Do you dare to interfere in the affairs of angel civilization in Tianja? What do you want to do? The space-based system has allocated 10% of the computing power, reading. The super gene engine and space-based system in the body, as well as the space-based computing group in the dark plane, add up to 10% of the computing power, which is already terrifying. Stars that are energy sources have experienced fluctuations, and solar flares have become more active. She found that even with such a huge computing power, it was still impossible to read. Reading failed. Repeat. Reading failed. Reading failed. Repeat. Reading failed. Reread the dark plane information. Reading. Failed to read. Repeat. Failed to read. She temporarily stopped reading. Her other projects are still running and there is no way to allocate more computing power. 10% of the computing power cannot be read. What on earth is this? Is there such a powerful god in the known universe? Or is it Carl, the god of death? Interesting, man-in-law, it's better not to tell her about this. Hexi became interested, or her curiosity and thirst for knowledge as a scientific researcher had been ignited, boiling, and exploded. If the man-in-law is informed, the man-in-law may immediately send his men to Blue Star. But Hexi thought it would be better to go with his own clone. In this way, even if there is a loss, it is only a clone, and you can still analyze and fight based on the intelligence that the clone has detected. I've decided, let the clone go. It won't take long. She asked one of his clones to go to Blue Star. If we could go to Sumali's location, we might be able to read something. Dark plane information cannot be sealed so perfectly, there will definitely be omissions. Luther is not yet sure which version of the super seminary or heroic company he is in. After all, each version is different, and it can even be said to have changed a lot. For this reason, he also went to the police station in Juia City to see arrived policewoman Keelan. Very good, not the policewoman Keelan who initially held a pistol and wished she could shoot people. This Keelan can be said to be Luther's favorite Keelan. She is responsible and has a sense of responsibility. She doesn't have as many problems as Jay Shaolun. Even though he has a little bit of a super gene, he is still the hardest working person. If it's this Keelan, there aren't many versions, but you still have to look at Delana. Luther thought for a moment. Delana had modified the model countless times just by going back and forth. The more she changed, the more ugly it became. It was not as good looking as the model at the beginning. Of course, the same goes for Angel Yan. Officer, thank you for your hard work. Let's have a cup of milk tea. Luther entered the police station with a large pile of milk tea. Keelan, your handsome Lou is here again. Then the policewoman teased Keelan, who was pretending to be working seriously. What are you calling me? I have nothing to do with him. Keelan retorted, how can you call me even if you don't even have a single horoscope? However, seeing Luther coming every day, Keelan didn't know what to say. She had reached the right age, and her family wanted her to go on a blind date, and Luther was her blind date. Keelan had a good impression of Luther at first impression. He was tall and handsome, not effeminate, strong and powerful, full of security and masculinity. According to the information given by her parents, his family was not bad, and he ran a beverage store and opened 5 chain stores. Given Keelan's father's position, it can be said that Luther's family background is considered to be marrying up, although Keelan and her father didn't think so. Luther naturally had nothing to say. He came to the super seminary, and he must be unbanned. He looked down on people in the Marvel world and the Dragon Ball world, but in the super seminary world, he must not let go of Keelan and Delana, who should be a supercharger for him. So he made some arrangements and got to know the policewoman Keelan. Keelan, it's about 3 o'clock, have some tea and rest. Luther said to Keelan. Luther, don't come here all the time. Keelan felt a little embarrassed. She hadn't made up her mind yet. Luther was so enthusiastic that she couldn't resist. I saw that everyone came here during their break so as not to interfere with official business. Luther said with a smile. Are you free tonight? Let's go out for dinner together. Keelan couldn't withstand Luther's attack, agreed to have dinner with Luther, and then hurriedly drove him away. Colleagues smiled and congratulated Keelan, while some were sad that a flower in the police station was picked. Luther found it very interesting, especially before Angel Yan came. This was the only thing Luther could do. You can't reveal your identity and say that you are a Kryptonian from the Kryptonian civilization and want to join the super seminary and become a scholar, right? What a waste of time. It is impossible for the super seminary to hand over important knowledge and technology to Luther right away. Although super genetic technology is now said to be the foundation of God-making civilization, this foundation lags behind more than 99% of civilizations in the entire known universe. Even though the plot of the super seminary is so outrageous that 3 generations of gods have come out to become cosmic mercenaries, the technology of the divine body and the God-making project are still the top priority. Therefore, it is better to make a deal with Angel Yan directly. Keelan changed into casual clothes after getting off work. When she's not at work, she doesn't wander around in her police uniform. Keelan. Luther drove to the police station to pick her up. Let me tell you first, I won't go to expensive places to eat. Keelan got in the car and said, I know, I'm afraid that others will say I bribed you, right? Luther said with a smile. That's not what I meant. I've just never been to a very high-end place to eat, so I'm not used to it. Keelan shook her head. With her family background and the fact that there were so many people in their family, it wouldn't be a problem for Keelan to go to a high-end restaurant or even a restaurant only open to club members. After all, Keelan's father, Chiling Feng, is the chief of the Juia City Police Department. And Keelan's police rank is 2 bars and 3 stars, first-class police inspector, which is already a very high level. It takes 24 years to reach this level after graduating from the police academy, and you must be good enough. This level corresponds to a deputy at the division bureau level to a full-time job at the bureau level. But Keelan is only 26 years old and has been a police officer since she was born. This is of course impossible. So the background and relationship are hard. It's just that Keelan thinks that kind of place is too artificial, and it's just for eating, so there's no need to spend so much money. So Luther took her to a medium-sized restaurant and asked for a private box. Keelan didn't refuse. The fact that she agreed to go out for dinner with Luther meant that she didn't mean anything to Luther, but Keelan felt that she still had to observe. Let's make an agreement first. I will only pay for what I eat for this meal. Keelan followed. It doesn't matter, you can do whatever you want. Luther looked at Keelan with a smile. Don't keep staring at me like this. Keelan was originally serious, but when a handsome guy of Luther's level stared at her like this, even Keelan was a little unable to resist. But there are only 2 of us here. What else can I see if I don't see you, Keelan? Luther said softly. I haven't agreed to date you yet, we are just friends now. Keelan said helplessly. I know, so I will try my best, Keelan. Luther nodded. Don't go to the police station in the future. That will only make me think you are troublesome. You can come to me after get off work. I hope we can start as friends. Otherwise, the time is too short and I haven't gotten to know you well. Luda. Keelan said seriously. Well, I understand. I'll find you again after you get off work. Luther did not refuse. Keelan was not the kind of little girl who was easily coaxed. She had passed the ideological education and had such upright views. She was very sensible and knew what she wanted. Such a good girl is almost impossible to find with a lantern. Keelan looked at Luther strangely. Was he so obedient? The 2 finished their meal quickly. After the meal, Luther did not take Keelan anywhere, but sent her home. You are already very tired after a busy day today. Take a good rest. Luther said to Keelan. Am I being that obvious? Keelan was surprised that Luther would do this. This showed Luther's thoughtfulness and attentiveness. Otherwise, he would have taken her to the movies or shopping. So after being touched by Luther's attentiveness and consideration, Keelan asked sheepishly. No, you performed very well, but I know that police officers are very hard and tired, and you should be no exception. Luther explained with a smile. Keelan's affection for Luther has increased a lot. It feels good to have a person who understands and cares about the police so well. She will become a police officer. On the one hand, she is influenced by her father and has been influenced by her since she was a child. On the other hand, it is also because she wants to serve the motherland. Keelan knows that many people now think about the police, but she feels that these are all misunderstandings and walking 5-year-olds. She deliberately caused trouble. Keelan would certainly be curious about what Lutherans thought of the police profession and professionals. Now she had the answer from Luther. This made Keelin's affection for Luther deepen. Goodbye. Keelin says goodbye. Goodbye. Luther nodded. Then Keelin returned home and found that her parents were looking at her with a smile on her face. That was Luther just now. I didn't expect to send you back. How do you feel? When will you take me home for a meal? Keelin was ashamed. What are you talking about? We are just friends now. Oh, just friends, then it should be soon. Keelin, don't rush into this kind of thing. See clearly what kind of person the other person is first. Keelin's father Chi Lingfeng gave his daughter a very calm advice. After all, he was an old father. Seeing a pig trying to steal his cabbage, it was good enough that he didn't have a shady attitude. Even though the blind date was arranged by them, Keelin's father was still a little reluctant. I know, Dad, but Luther doesn't have such a negative view of us policemen. Keelin couldn't help but say to her old father. Really, what did he say? Keelin's old father Chi Lingfeng was a little surprised. I thought he would invite me to dinner, and then take me to the movies or shopping. I didn't expect him to say that I should rest and then send me back. Keelin said briefly. Keelin thought for a while and looked at Keelin again. Even his old father couldn't see that Keelin was a little tired, and Luther obviously couldn't see it either, so the other party seemed to really care about the profession and attentiveness of the police. Well, he might be pretty good. In fact, Chi Lingfeng didn't know his daughter's personality. If she really wasn't interested, she wouldn't go out to dinner with Luther. So, as a father, he could only help his daughter keep a close eye on him. Luther monitored the entire Juxia city, while trying to study what Sumali knew, to see if he could put these theoretical sciences into practice. Unfortunately, Sumali's fault was too serious, a technological fault of tens of thousands of years, so Luther didn't know how to get the super gene engine. It was just like asking primitive people who saw a spaceship and got some theories about spaceships to study nuclear fusion. Fortunately, Luther was not bored. After all, he had a girlfriend like Keelin. Because the super seminary didn't know Keelin's super gene, it would not pay attention to Keelin at all. On the contrary, the super seminary kept monitoring other characters. The super gene in Keelin's body was extremely weak, and it was from the Shinhe star network of the Shinhe civilization. The super seminary didn't know how many super genes the Shinhe star network had spread, so it naturally couldn't detect it. Luther and Keelin got along very quickly. The super brain, super reaction and supervision could allow Luther to quickly respond to various situations and analyze Keelin's psychological activities and body language. Well, he also learned some knowledge in this area recently. Keelin didn't know why Luther was so nice. She felt that Luther was the man destined for her. He knew her too well and was too easy to fall for. In just 1 month, their relationship warmed up and they were always together. And 1 month later, on the day of the blind date, Luther asked her to date and change their relationship, and Keelin agreed. There was nothing wrong with agreeing. Keelin was a person who dared to love and hate. As long as she was sure, she would not continue to be shy. And she also felt that 1 month was enough for her to understand and see clearly what kind of person Luther was. The answer is that Luther is the man destined for her. In this case, what is there to hesitate about? For Luther, this is his first love, even if it is counted in the previous life. Everyone's first love is 100% sincere, so it is so unforgettable. Later, they dare not be so sincere, and it becomes 80% or even less. Luther said that his first love is a good girl like Keelin, which is really great. The streets of Juxia city were bustling with people at night. A handsome man and a beautiful woman walked hand in hand on the street. You have to go to work tomorrow, or I'll take you home to rest. Luther said to Keelin with concern. Keelin is just an ordinary earthling now. After the super gene is activated and she becomes a super soldier, she doesn't need to worry about this problem. Now she still has to worry. No need, we finally came out. Keelin shook her head. Or do you have other things that make you unwilling to stay with me for a while? Then Keelin grabbed Luther's palm and said, how is it possible? I wish I could see you every day when I wake up. Luther said with a smile. Keelin rolled her eyes. You wish. If you don't think about beautiful things in life, what else do you want to think about? Luther said righteously. Keelin didn't say anything else to Luther. She had already discovered that Luther was quite good at sophistry, and she couldn't beat him at all, so Keelan had given up. Luther, you are so outstanding, why do you like me? Keelan asked. Here we go again, how am I outstanding? Only 5 chain stores are outstanding. Luther complained. This is not outstanding. You started from scratch, started your own business, and funded the construction of schools and the laying of wires and water supply in poor mountainous areas. You even set up a foundation to raise funds for road construction, although you were accused of illegal fundraising. The more Keelan knew about Luther, the more she felt that Luther was amazing. Oh, those are enough money to spend, and the money is meaningless, so I did this just to add points to myself. When I was on a blind date, there were girls who thought I was wasting money and there was no point in doing charity. Luther was very frank. It's okay to add points to myself, but I like your frankness. Many people are not even willing to do this. You are already too outstanding. Keelan said, leaning on Luther's shoulder. Luther said so frankly that he did all this because he had enough money to spend, and then he added background points to himself, which surprised Keelan, but she felt that he was more real. After all, he could even say such things directly. What else could compare? She did not pursue any material life, nor did she reject Luther's approach. Judging from deeds rather than hearts, no one is perfect. At least, Luther did it, not just talking. Really, I hope you don't think I'm wasting money. Luther stroked Keelan's hair. The height difference between the two was a little big. Luther was almost 2 meters tall. Walking on the street was like a little giant. In addition, he was very good looking and had a body of muscles that dressed in a stylish way. The rate of turning back was quite high. How could it be? I think this is a good thing. Keelan shook her head. The two found a quiet place to sit down. They had just finished talking, and the atmosphere was very suitable. Luther used the biological force field to eliminate the mosquitoes that approached, so as not to disturb this atmosphere. Then Luther got Keelan's first kiss. Considering Keelan's conservative and reserved nature, being able to achieve this level in a month was already quite good. Luther did not force her, but felt that this was not bad at all. He naturally wanted to go further, but he respected Keelan's own ideas. Now he judged from Keelan's body language that she was still somewhat resistant to further intimacy. So Luther just took away the first kiss. Luther, I'm sorry. Keelan was very moved that Luther stopped at the right time, and then said, I have already got what I want. Luther said with a smile. Really? Keelan laughed, and Luther couldn't help it again. After it was over, Luther sent Keelan home. Both of them had endless aftertastes. Keelan tossed and turned, and couldn't fall asleep. Luther relied on his powerful super brain to control the secretion of various hormones, so that he would not be too excited and couldn't help but want to eat meat. At least it has to be Keelan, it's a precious experience. Luther convinced himself. However, the next day, Luther sensed a powerful life form flying from the sky. It's been more than a month, and I finally got it. Luther didn't dare to go back to the Marvel universe, fearing that he would miss it, so he probably had to go find Morgana, but the problem was that Luther didn't have a good impression of Morgana. Wait, why isn't it Angel Yan? Then something unexpected happened. Luther didn't wait for Angel Yan. He saw a female angel with silver armor and silver hair descending from the sky and heading to Sumali's home. King Tianji, she. After more than a month of research, Luther has clearly studied the sun of the super seminary world, or the sun of the blue star's solar system. Its sunlight will not cause any mutation to itself. On the contrary, this sun is full of vitality, causing the energy it brings to Luther to be very abundant. Then it was gone. After all, if it doesn't mutate, Luther won't pay any extra attention to it. Hexi is here. Luther immediately thought about the reason why Tianji King Hexi came to Earth. It was probably because Sumali's dark plane information was gone, which led Tianji King Hexi to change the plot and come to Earth. This should be a clone, right? Luther thought thoughtfully. Tianji King Hexi's clone technique was developed based on Sun Wukong's clone technique. However, compared with Sun Wukong's disappearing clone, Tianji King Hexi's clone technique has a physical body and can be called a battle doll, can also be called high-tech doll. Of course, this cannot be developed by Hexi, the king of Tianji, after seeing the clone displayed by Sun Wukong in the battle against Teoti civilization in modern times. No matter how talented Hexi is, he would not be able to solve the technical problems so quickly. Therefore, the most likely possibility is that the Heavenly King Hexi learned about Sun Wukong's battle with the Liang civilization when he went to study at the Liang civilization a long time ago. Then he developed his own clone technology from the conceptual theory of Sun Wukong's clone technology. Yes, she went to Liang civilization for further study. The official statement was that it was a friendly exchange, and he visited Liang civilization on behalf of Angel civilization. But Hexi even learned the solar flare technology of Liang civilization, and also developed a flare furnace technology that would not cause too much damage. Therefore, it is difficult to imagine what level of academic exchange the original academic exchange was. It is simply outrageous. I don't know if Hexi's clone has any technology stored in it, but if it is abducted for research, it might be possible to develop something. Luther was very moved. If he abducted the Hexi doll to the Marvel Universe and handed it over to Galvatron, he might be able to analyze something. Just by doing this, it's not sure whether she can read anything from the dark plane information. It seems that she didn't read my dark plane information. Luther used his supervision to carefully observe she, who was several kilometers away. She fell into confusion in Sumali's house. Luther didn't know how effective he was in blocking information from the dark plane. Now that he saw she like this, he knew that the effect might be very good. What happened? Hexi really couldn't read more information about the dark plane. She originally thought that after her clone arrived here, she would be able to find something more or less, but as a result, the information about the dark plane was extremely clean. What she saw back then, that's what it is now. Even she didn't know who killed Sumali or how she killed Sumali. It's very abrupt, as if a video suddenly skipped frames and lost the content of a certain frame section. Hello, Angel. Suddenly, a voice came into Hizai's ears. Who? She reacted immediately, looked in the direction of Luther, and then saw a special being. She can't read the other party's dark plane information. Did you kill the people here? She is sure of this. Good. Luther knew this and could not hide the past, so he admitted it frankly. Who are you? She temporarily stopped asking about Sumali's situation, and instead looked at Luther curiously. Kryptonian civilization, Luther. Luther briefly introduced himself. Kryptonian civilization. I've never heard of this civilization. She didn't even need to check the man-in-law's treasure trove of sacred knowledge and her own space-based system to know that she had never heard of or recorded this civilization. That's because we are dead and Krypton no longer exists. Luther said calmly. She was unable to analyze any information from him. The dark plane information was blocked by an unknown person and could not be read. For angels and even other gods and super warriors, it would be blind. Relying on body language and facial micro-expressions. The error rate is too high, and it is not as reliable as the dark plane information. Really, I'm sorry. You took the initiative to come to me. Is there something wrong? She crossed her hands and originally wanted to find a place to sit down, but when she thought of the unsightly dark plane information, she did not sit down. Instead, she signaled to Luther and flew into the sky. Luther also flew up. She stared at him closely, but was still confused. There is no fluctuation of dark energy in the dark plane, and no superpower algorithm is detected. What is going on? Superpower algorithms convert dark energy into various superpowers, such as algorithmic formulas that control thunder, fire, and storms, and super gene engine running programs. Of course, Angel Yan's thunder god of war has the ability to control thunder and lightning in her super gene. It does not mean that she also uses a superpower algorithm to have the ability to control thunder and lightning. Hexi was puzzled to understand what technology Luther used. His own space-based system and space-based computing group analyzed the possibility that Luther's super gene does not have the ability to use dark energy. This is his super gene. The superpowers inherent in genes, etc. She didn't know which outcome was right. Maintaining curiosity and enthusiasm for unknown things is a necessary psychological and thinking mode for scientific researchers. Luther knows this, so he knows how attractive these things he showed in a short period of time are to she. Don't you know your identity yet? Luther did not immediately say that he had something to do, but asked Hizai's identity. I'm just an ordinary angel, you can call me Whirling. She paused, then said. She also blocked her dark plane information. If Luther invaded and read it, her firewall and genetic system would prompt her. In addition, not everyone has such a convenient technology as the Angel's Insight Eye to directly read the dark plane information. If other civilizations want to read it, it will be very noisy. Whirling is okay. This angel, I heard that you angels are interested in this kind of thing. Luther took out the Sumali brand dark silver. Such a large piece of dark silver really surprised she. What does a manly woman do for a living? How could she miss such a large piece of dark silver? With a celestial level supercomputer, everything in the universe can be calculated and detected, including the movement of atoms. Holy Kesha doesn't even need to send people to search, she can know which galaxy has the dark silver vein. Don't think it's an exaggeration. The original plot repeatedly showed the detection and analysis of various atomic movements by beings at the level of gods. At the very least, Super Seminary knows how to go into the microscopic realm in this regard. The treasure house of knowledge was said to be a celestial computer second only to the great clock, placed in the dark plane. The treasure house of sacred knowledge records all the cutting-edge science and technology of the angel civilization, as well as relevant data of major civilizations in the known universe, and can accurately calculate and deduce the development process of galaxy civilization. According to the settings, the treasure house of sacred knowledge and the great clock have the function of a cosmic tree model. Through this function, the entire universe is simulated. According to the Big Bang theory of the universe, various mechanical systems from the main material plane to the dark matter plane are calculated to form the entire morphological framework of the universe. It starts from an explosion core and spreads out to form a tree-like particle structure diagram. The diameter is huge, forming a spherical celestial body suspended in the universe. There are countless luminous particles around it. Each particle is a galaxy, and each galaxy particle can be re-expanded to show the state of the entire galaxy. The entire galaxy can be further expanded to include their planets, their geology and landforms, temperatures, etc. The data it calculates are relatively accurate unless a civilization changes those planets or even stars. All data is real, and accuracy varies based on the varying degrees of destruction of the universe by local civilizations. Ding He called the cosmic space that a large clock can accurately analyze the known universe. Spaces that cannot be accurately analyzed are called marginal spaces. By the way, the scum king Juia and millions of scum were banished by the angels and driven to the edge space. The characteristic of edge space is that calculations and analysis are inaccurate. Coordinates and space jumps transmitted through wormholes will mysteriously fail, or they will arrive at other locations. Even the smallest changes can be updated and predicted in real time. Even if the cosmic tree model is running, it consumes a lot of energy and resources. That's why she was surprised that the man-in-law missed such a large piece of hidden money. Where did you get this dark silver? Hexi asked. Why are you asking this question? It shouldn't have anything to do with the deal between us, right? Luther knew why she asked, but he still pretended not to know. Anyway, no matter how outrageous his imagination is, it is impossible to imagine that he is from another universe. At most, he thinks that he obtained the dark silver in the edge space outside the known universe. Because it is a place that even the big clock of celestial level supercomputers cannot calculate. What do you want? This thing is indeed what our angels want. She nodded and did not continue to ask. She figured out that the Kryptonian civilization mentioned by Luther might be a civilization that existed in the fringe space, so this piece of dark silver probably came from the fringe space. I want you. Luther looked at she and said. Hexi's expression changed slightly. Everyone in the known universe knows about the matching of angel civilizations. However, angels will always look for super warriors and male gods, and they rely on the calculation results of Holy Kesha's sacred knowledge treasure house. For she felt that this method was too boring, so she didn't consider it at all. But her current identity is not Tianji King Hexi, but Angel Erling. This leads to the fact that if Luther wants her, although it is impossible to succeed, the man-in-law will definitely laugh at her after she finds out. I want the super genetic technology and divine body technology of your angelic civilization. Luther took a big breath and then continued. That's impossible. She shook his head and said. Luther was panting heavily, and she just paused, not affected at all. After all, She was an old woman, tens of thousands of years old. She cannot be expected to be easily startled like a little girl. The super gene technology and divine body technology of each civilization are unique. It is impossible for you to want the super gene of our angels. She said. You misunderstood. What I want is not the angel's super gene, but only super gene technology and divine body technology. Luther shook his head and said, super genes are divided into original super genes and supercomputers based on super genes implanted in human genes, dark matter computers. Although it is not shown in the plot, if the original super gene fights against the super soldier with the super gene engine, it will feel like the opponent is hanging on the wall. The reason is that the dark matter computer implanted in the gene can help the super gene carrier better control its own super genes and strengthen the ability of the super genes, just like an auxiliary software plugin. For example, if you want to release flames, you have to control it yourself. The other party can release flames at will, and they are still huge flames. The casting speed and firepower will completely overwhelm you, and everyone has the same super gene. Will you feel that the other party is hanging on the wall? Gene expansibility, matching degree equals suitable for installing computers. Activate the super gene, which is the invisible gene before it is activated equals plug the computer into the power source and turn it on. Different super genes equals computers with different configurations. Fusion gene equals replacement of computer accessories. Space-time technology equals large-scale system software, which requires a long time to develop, install and be compatible, and learn assembly language. Space-time gene void gene equals pre-installed software system with functions, can be applied more deeply and better, still need to learn. Void engine black hole engine equals pre-written large functional system, same as above. Demon civilizations powerful, flame, rubber body genes equals low-end computer plus small software. Hearing Luther say this, she looked him up and down. You are the original super gene. She was more interested. Can the original super gene reach this level? Judging from the killing of Sumali, the second-generation scum, Luther's Krypton civilization is undoubtedly more powerful in terms of original super genes. Such a civilization, if it obtains super gene engine technology, it is estimated that it will be a big wave of enhancement. Even if Luther said that his civilization has been destroyed, she would not believe it immediately, even if she is a face control, even if Luther looks completely in her strike zone. She is not Angel Juxin and Angel Yan, so prodigal, the source code of the sacred knowledge treasure house is given as long as she says, and Tianren number 7 is given as long as she says. I can't make the decision on this matter. She shook his head and said. At the same time, he is very interested in Luther's original super gene. If he can get it, maybe he can use it to strengthen the angel's super gene. Really? Then I will trade with Liang civilization. Luther nodded. This is not a good idea. The Liang civilization may not be that easy to talk to. She said calmly. That makes sense, but I'm still a little confident in my ability to protect myself. Luther said with a smile. The way he used it when he was getting along with Keelan was different from now. After all, he even knew how to transform, so of course Luther had to use it. Seeing that Luther was really turning around to leave, she couldn't help it anymore. The main reason is that Luther blocked the dark plane information. If he really left, she would not be able to find him. As for the dark silver weapon, even if it is a semi-obsolete weapon for men, its lethality is still terrible. Gods and super soldiers without the ability to recover can only use one sword at a time. If it weren't for the special material of Ansu Silver and the inability to load the engine of the god-killing device, Ansu Silver's god-killing weapon would be the most sophisticated weapon in the known universe. Now the dark silver weapons and the god-killing weapons are tied together, followed by the flame-level weapons. If it were circulated to Liang civilization, she would definitely be nagged by the manly woman over and over again. Okay, you win, she said. What? Luther looked confused, and then he disappeared. Hexi was stunned for a moment, and then she went crazy. He actually left. No, haven't I already compromised? How could you just walk away? She quickly realized, could it be that Luther had never thought about this aspect at all, and simply left after the transaction failed, instead of playing hard to get? Your uncle is already a super soldier, but there is still such a simple person. Not good. She had a headache. but he couldn't refuse to report the information, so he could only contact the main body and send the information. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. The reaction of the body is like this. Then the main body quickly contacted Kesha. Little Shasha. Quote dot dot dot. Have you done something wrong again? Kesha was shocked by Hexi's affectionate tone when he opened his mouth. This was the second time she heard this title and this tone after so many years. Kesha said she would rather this was a dream, because Hexi said so last time. At that time, it was a big basket. Sure enough, after listening to Hexi's words, Kesha knew that the problem this time was bigger. A large piece of dark silver. With that amount, even if the Liang civilization used all of it to make blades, it would at least be able to arm thousands of Liang warriors. And Suyin weapon is like cutting melons and vegetables against third-generation divine bodies and below. Even third-generation divine bodies probably won't be able to withstand many hits. You are indeed not wrong in this matter. Kesha rubbed her eyebrows. She was such a careless bestie. She didn't tell her even when she went to Blue Star. But she can't be blamed for this matter. His eyes starting point was also good, but he didn't expect Luther to be so straightforward. He would come to the door to make a deal and leave if the deal failed. He won a group of people without any delay and decisiveness. At the same time, Kesha also became interested in Luther. Even she couldn't read the other party's dark plane information. What kind of technology is this? As for the original super gene, is it the superpower that comes with the super gene? If this original super gene is really like this, it would be incredible. Hiding dark plane information is equivalent to being invisible in front of super soldiers and gods. It is like the effect of black armor, which cannot be located or scanned. Even Luther's ability is stronger. If it is used for sneak attacks, it will be invincible. Yeah, who would have thought that this is the case? Hexi said quickly. But if anything, you have made some mistakes. Kesha said slowly. He wants super gene engine technology and divine body technology. This is related to the upgrade of a civilization from a god-making civilization to a super god civilization. There are only a few super god civilizations in the known universe. Little Shasha, tell me, can I not discuss it with you? For a moment. Hexi was timid again. Quote dot dot dot. Super divine civilization is not that easy, and Suyin is more important than this. Kesha said very domineeringly that one more super god civilization would be nothing. You are awesome, she said quietly. Edge space, Kryptonian civilization. Kesha contacted Angel Yan who was heading to Blue Star. Isn't this a coincidence? She had just sent Yan out, hoping to make it in time. Yan. Angel Yan was already outside the Blue Star's atmosphere. I'm here, Queen Kesha. Angel Yan responded immediately. You go to Blue Star for broadcasting. Dark plane dark communication and use the Blue Star people's broadcast to send messages, contact a person from the Kryptonian civilization named Luther, and tell him that our angels not only agree to the transaction, but are also willing to give away a portion of super gene engine material. Kesha was very serious and generous when she corrected her best friend's mistakes. Anyway, it was Hizai's own mistake, so these 3 super gene engine materials came from Hizai's own resource library. Queen, Angel Yan was confused and didn't know what happened. Just do it. It's hard for Kesha to explain, so Hizai's mistake should not be made known to everyone. Yes, Queen Kesha. Angel Yan had no choice but to suppress his confusion and replied respectfully. Luther did it on purpose, he just wanted to see she going crazy. Humph, I brought Suyin over directly to trade, but in the end, I was pushed back and forth, so I decided not to trade at all. It would be better to give it to the ambitious Liang civilization. He is not a dog licker, and he will not spoil the other person just because he is beautiful. To be fair, the Ansu silver material is the most precious material in any god-making civilization or even a super god civilization. Especially the Angel's blockade has made the Ansu silver even more rare and rare. Super gene engine technology and divine body technology have already knowing the universe is not a precious thing. After all, 3 generations of gods have gone to work as mercenaries. What kind of precious technology is this? So Luther felt that he had done his best and didn't want the Angel's super gene. As a result, she still wanted to bargain with him, so Luther simply gave up the deal. The worst-case scenario is tricking Reina into buying An Suyin. Luther feels that Reina is easier to fool. On the surface, Liang civilization is no longer a heavenly civilization, but it can be seen from Xuantianji's attitude that they still want the entire universe to surrender under their divine power. Such ambitions will still be hidden when the angel civilization is strong, but if it obtains Ansu silver, will Liang civilization still hide it? Even if it is hindered by the silver-winged realm of Holy Kesha. I guess my small actions in private will become bolder, right? You can't blame me. After all, I am sincere. My heart should illuminate the moon, but the moon illuminates the ditch. Luther sighed. Mr. Luther of Kryptonian civilization. Mr. Luther of Kryptonian civilization, I am Angel Yan of angelic civilization. Chapter 51. Angel Yan invaded all the electromagnetic wave signals of Blue Star, and then controlled them to make sounds together, and also broadcast on the free channel of dark communication in the dark plane. Our angel civilization hopes to continue trading with you, and we are willing to add 3 super gene engine materials. Our angel civilization hopes to continue trading with you, and we are willing to add 3 super gene engine materials. The Blue Star people don't know why. What kind of Kryptonian civilization? What kind of angelic civilization? Which hacker's prank is this? Luther really didn't expect such an operation. 3 super gene engine materials. I have to say that Luther was excited. If he collected the materials by himself, he didn't know how long it would take. After all, it was a dark matter computer, the kind that could implant genes. Just thinking about it would tell you how difficult this thing is. But I have omnipotent transformation magic. Maybe the materials can be transformed directly. Luther thought. Alas, defeated. Luther shook his head and soared into the sky. Angel Yan was still repeating the broadcast over and over again, and then he saw a person flying in front of him very fast. Angel, I am Luther from the Kryptonian civilization. Luther recognized Angel Yan, and then looked to the side. His eyes clone also flew up, following closely behind. King Tianji. Angel Yan instantly recognized who this sister was and quickly said respectfully. Everything is here, where is An Suyin? She was afraid that Luther would run away again, so he quickly took out his things. Although the super gene engine material is not precious to her, she is a hamster, a man who has a tendency to get in and out, and has a severe end-stage hoarding habit. This man-in-law will feel very distressed for her. But there was nothing I could do. Who could let this be my own mistake? An Suyin. Angel Yan was shocked and finally understood why Queen Kesha was so anxious and nervous. Let me check first. Luther did not take out An Suyin immediately, but said to she. Can't you trust the credibility of our angels? She said speechlessly. Wulingqi no longer has any credibility with me. Luther said with a smile. Erling. Angel Yan was confused. Tianji King Hexi was not named like this. She quickly blocked the communication channel and asked Angel Yan to stay quiet and stop talking nonsense. Angel Yan had no choice but to do as he was told and watched Luther check things. Then Luther quickly browsed the information on super gene engine technology and the information on divine body technology. Sure enough, there were a lot of vacancies. According to the previous inference, it was probably about the angel's super gene. However, Luther saw what gave him a headache. The super gene engine was not ready to use. Even the materials that had been made into dark matter computers were not suitable for every super gene. Unless it is a mass-produced super gene, it can be adapted. In other words, after Luther gets the materials, he still has to research a dark matter computer that can adapt to his current Destruction Day Kryptonian genes, not to mention that he also wants to fuse Brawley's genes. There are both super genetic technology and super genetic code, but the latter are relatively rare. Only angel civilization and demon civilization understand this. It represents eternity, which is the method used by demons to directly resurrect. Angel civilization respects life and does not use this method to revive. The super genetic code is similar to the wedge of Naruto's Otsutsuki clan, which can copy itself and digitize itself, and then penetrate it into other people's bodies. A black diamond-shaped mark will appear on the palm of the person's hand as a symbol. This mark is wedge. In fact, wedge is Otsutsuki's own body data. The compressed file will be unfrozen, little by little over a long period of time, and the unfreezing can also be accelerated through combat. When all the data is unfrozen, the body of the device will be replaced with Otsutsuki's own data. The existence of Chi completely disappeared, and Otsutsuki himself completed the resurrection. The super genetic code is more powerful and can be directly reshaped with only enough energy and material, but it is more convenient to use the original carrier for resurrection. Super gene technology is a technology that radiates and mutates ordinary genes and allows them to naturally evolve into super genes. After Luther quickly thought about it in his mind, he judged that the Kryptonian gene was already a completed super gene and did not need to undergo radiation mutation. On the contrary, it would be dangerous. After all, he did not have a celestial-level supercomputer to control and guide the mutation. Besides, it's even more inappropriate now that he's Doomsday in human form. How about it? She asked with a smile. Although Luther said that her credibility in front of him was gone, she would not take this kind of thing to heart. She was just greedy for Luther's body and didn't know what kind of super gene. Give. Luther took out Sumali. I don't know what will happen to Sumali. She will probably enter Kesha's arsenal. This is still good. If the corpse is cut into pieces and made into a dark silver weapon, that would be too miserable. Angel Yan was even more shocked. Such a large piece of dark silver. She took it casually, analyzed it, and threw it into the wormhole. Dark Su-Yin is very easy to analyze and calculate. Even Sumali, a backward second generation, can solve Dark Su-Yin without the assistance of dark matter computers and genetic systems. You can see how easy it is to solve. Goodbye, Luther said to He with a smile, and he disappeared the next moment. His eyes space-based system, which has fully opened up its computing power, said that it could not detect wormholes, dark energy information, or... This guy has more and more secrets. She frowned. Sky-based king. Angel Yan didn't know why Sky-based king He appeared here. For Dark Su-Yin, that's too much of a fuss. Wouldn't it be better to send an angel over? Don't tell anyone about what happened today, Angel Yan. She said to Angel Yan. Yes, Angel Yan could only obey. Of course, she would still report this matter to Queen Kesha, and she would make the decision. Okay, do what you should do. She waved her hand. Then she left first. Only Angel Yan was left here. Angel Yan first sent the information about the dark plane that just happened to Holy Kesha, and then entered Blue Star. After Luther returned to Blue Star with the materials and information, he conducted in-depth study and research. Relying on the super brain, he learned the vast knowledge in less than a day. This is something that all scientific research gods cannot do, and it is Luther's advantage. The super gene engine technology is indeed useful to me. After Luther finished studying, he began to think. His thinking speed was also very fast. Although it was not as exaggerated as the Planck time unit, it was almost as much as the main god of civilization supported by a celestial-level supercomputer. Luther still had confidence. The reason why the Doomsday Kryptonian gene and Brawley gene could not be fused was because both genes were too strong. If you want them not to be mutually exclusive, fight and waste, you can only cultivate them from embryos, which is the method of Dr. Groh's Saru artificial human. But that would make no sense. Invincible beings can be cultivated, and Luther doesn't care about this, otherwise he wouldn't have cultivated cucumbers. However, this foundation is based on the fact that he is invincible first. I will train an invincible thug only when I am invincible myself. If I am not invincible yet, I will train an invincible thug first. I won't go into details. For the specific outcome, please refer to a series of two-dimensional works in the world such as Dr. Groh. The villain. The super gene engine, that is, the dark matter computer can design programs and functions. This is also the reason why the dark matter computers of each different super gene do not match. My dark matter computer cannot be made with materials from the super seminary, otherwise it will not be possible at all. Can't handle the Doomsday gene and Brawley gene. Luther began to study. The strength of his Doomsday Kryptonian gene and Brawley gene are too high. If he uses the dark matter computer materials from the super seminary, I am afraid that if these dark matter computers are not upgraded at once, they will be overloaded and scrapped, and then he will lose control. I never know what it will become. It doesn't matter, the intensity is too low. Can't the material hold up? Luther was originally very insecure about installing tiny mechanical creations in his body. He personally did not believe in the combination of machinery and flesh and blood. Who wouldn't be afraid of cyberpsychosis? So he felt that he still had to take the biological route. Interesting, the doomsday gene cells are used to create a dark matter computer or biomass computer for control. The Brawley gene is directly implanted into my genes. The doomsday biomass computer has only one functional program, which is suppression and control. Adapt to the conflict of two super genes. Luther quickly found an idea. Brawley's genetic cell biomass computer is not very reliable, and its adaptability is not as professional as Doomsday. Although it can continue to get stronger, in terms of adapting to evolution, Doomsday said it is second to none. No one dares to say first. Even Darkseid's Omega effect can adapt to it after dying once. The biomass computer and the dark matter computer are not the same concept. Although the functions are similar, this thing is an unprecedented initiative pioneered by Luther. If it succeeds, he alone can use it. In the context of the super seminary universe, the dark matter computer is more suitable. Luther took this path because his two super genes, Doomsday and Brawley, could destroy heaven and earth. They could kill gods at the top and destroy the universe at the bottom. No matter what, he would never let go of fusing the two super genes together. Possibility. My current Doomsday gene strength is still too low, I need a stronger Doomsday. Luther's current Doomsday gene can only be said to be castration, copycat, and fake. The real Doomsday from beginning to end is the ancient Doomsday that killed Apocalypse and even Darkseid's body was killed. The Doomsday that the out-of-control Kryptonians turned into was, at best, a shoddy imitation biological weapon. It's not that Luther couldn't create better Doomsday genes before, but he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to bear it. Luther, you seem to be very busy recently. Keelan keenly noticed that Luther seemed to have little free time recently. Well, something happened in the store. Luther would naturally still find Keelan in his busy schedule. His biomass computer had failed thousands of times. A more powerful Doomsday gene was successfully cultivated, but it was stuck at the biomass computer step. This is how scientific research works, with countless repeated experiments and waste of countless resources just for a little possibility. It's not too busy to say that he is taking a break from work. Luther is bored and can handle a lot of work by himself. It just takes a long time to wait. What happened? Do you want my help? Keelan immediately said with concern. She knew that Luther had 5 chain beverage stores, but Keelan didn't care much about this kind of thing. She was not with Luther for money. In this day and age, rich people it cannot be compared to having power cannot compare to having power, and being powerful cannot compare to having background. And Keelan happens to be powerful. It's nothing, I'm just planning to open a new branch, and we're currently selecting a location. Of course, Luther could not say something about the urgent need for cash flow, and then defraud money and girls. Is business so good? Keelan was a little surprised. To open a branch, the income must be greater than the expenditure to expand the business. It won't be about taking out a loan to open a new store, Luther. Don't be anxious. It's best to be down to earth. I don't mind how much money you can make. Keelan was worried that Luther wanted to marry her gloriously in front of her father-in-law, so she took out a loan to open a branch. This is not surprising, or maybe most people do this, or they think that taking risks may not necessarily be risky, but they don't know that a careless person can end up losing his family. Keelan didn't want Luther to take this risk. That's not true. The business is very good. There is a big difference between the expenditure and the income. I have saved a lot of money and there is still some left over when I open a branch. It is better than earning interest in the bank. I don't dare to take risks in investing. So opening a store is the best choice. Luther looked honest and honest. Investment, any investment, that was so risky. Keelan felt very satisfied after hearing this. Where is the location? Is it still in Juia City? Keelan asked with concern. No, I plan to throw it to the capital, Northern Star. Luther just said it casually, but it would be no problem to make arrangements after he goes back. After all, his drink had a little something added in it to make it taste great, so there was basically no need to worry. This is also to prevent my father-in-law from discovering that his store is losing money during the investigation. Where did he get the money to fall in love and marry my daughter? I am afraid it is not money laundering. If that happened, everyone would always be embarrassed, so in order to avoid this situation, Luther had to turn these 5 stores into money printing machines. The daily income started at 8,000 and ended at 10,000, barely enough to maintain the store rent. Every inch of land in Northern Star is more valuable than Juxia City. Isn't that bad? Keelan said worriedly. It doesn't matter. Your husband has a rich family background. Luther said to Keelan with a smile. Husband, there's nothing to do. Keelan said. I've already decided on you. Don't even think about running away. Luther hugged Keelan's slender waist. This waist is simply amazing. A beautiful woman doesn't need a knife to kill people. She relies on her waist to seduce people. Keelan was hugged by Luther and fell into his strong chest. Angel Yan came to Blue Star for a simple purpose, to inform the super seminary of Blue Star that evil is about to come. She thought that Tianji King Hexi had left after finishing his business, but she didn't know that Hexi was interested in Luther and stayed in Blue Star to observe Luther. Of course, if Luther didn't show up, she wouldn't know where Luther was. After all, Luther used the transformation technique to meet her, slightly adjusted his appearance, and changed into a pure white short hair and eyebrows, which looked very different from his current appearance. Maybe Hexi would think that Kryptonians all have white hair. She did not conclude that Luther was still on Blue Star, but she would not conclude that Luther had left Blue Star, so she would stay to observe the dark plane information of the entire Blue Star. Once the gods get serious, they will be very dedicated and rigorous. After all, this is a universe where the gods of science and technology have reached the level of science fiction or even fantasy. As the top scientific research god, she would naturally not ignore this. On the contrary, after she transmitted the situation to the main body gave her a lot of computing power support. Obviously, the main body was also very interested in Luther's original super gene. Does this guy have his own laboratory on Blue Star? Or is the spaceship of Krypton civilization nearby? She has read the databases of the Dinor civilization and the super seminary on Blue Star, and they don't know the existence of Luther. Although Dinor 3 is also a very powerful supercomputer, it is naturally not enough in front of she. Morgana can come and go freely and read whatever information she wants, not to mention she. Excluding the possibility of the super seminary and Dinor civilization on Blue Star, there is not much scope for she to guess. Even if Luther got the super gene engine material, it would take a long time for him to mix it. However, there was no special reaction from the wormhole and the worm bridge, so Luther was likely still on Blue Star. She was not only satisfying her curiosity and thirst for knowledge, but also for the future and evolution of angel civilization. After knowing this, the man-woman agreed with her approach, but the man-woman also sent out the little angels under her. The Sacred Knowledge Treasure House could not read Luther's dark plane information, so naturally there was no way to match it. The man-woman probably wanted to calculate the matching results in Luther's data through the contact and interaction between these little angels and Luther. It's just that the dark plane information cannot be read. It's not that the scientific research gods have no other ways to collect information. It's just that Luther's dragon is elusive, and he doesn't know why he can disappear instantly to hide himself, which increases the difficulty of collecting information for them. Otherwise, if Luther really showed up in a swagger, even if he could block his dark plane information, she would collect a lot of information. Luther was worried that he couldn't beat these angels with thousands of years of mind, so he didn't choose to show up, but disguised himself and reduced contact. In the animation, the performance was insufficient due to the problems of the producer and the script planner, but after becoming a reality, she and Keisha were not so easy to deal with. To use a very cool line from Pan Zhen, he pointed to his heart and said, "There are tens of thousands of years of city here. It's scary just to hear it." At present, because of Luther's intrusion, the situation on Blue Star has changed, not very subtle, and a demon queen who came here has not discovered this. This place is not bad, Carl. Morgana was shopping and eating barbecue, and felt that Blue Star was very decadent, chaotic and free. She asked the Death Carl when she could teleport her demon No. 1. It was quite urgent. With demon No. 1, Morgana had the confidence. Ms. Morgana, you know, Holy Keisha is watching me. If I use the big clock, I will be discovered. The Death Carl said gently. Call me Queen, Morgana said unhappily. As the top licker, Death Carl naturally followed suit. I don't care. At worst, I don't want Blue Star anymore. You will still be restricted at that time, so send demon number 1 to me as soon as possible. Morgana cursed unceremoniously. The purpose of the two people joining forces is not only to share the same interests but also to benefit. Morgana needs a batch of resources to revive her dead subordinates, and Death Carl just has them. Death Carl needs Holy Kesha to go offline, so that he can let go to study the void and collect void matter. The research is almost done. Now Death Carl only needs void matter. He needs to blow up the black hole. The problem is that Holy Kesha will not allow such a big move. She blocked the way of Death Carl. The hatred of blocking the road is irreconcilable. That's probably what it means. The two hit it off and colluded with each other. However, Morgana did not trust Carl the God of Death very much, because she and Carl the God of Death were actually about to get together, but Carl the God of Death turned into an illusion without saying a word. In Morgana's view, this was a betrayal, so she completely abandoned Carl the God of Death and hated and even feared him. Death Carl originally wanted to turn Morgana into an illusion. He loved Morgana, but this kind of love was very high-end. As a scholar, Death Carl had no physical desires. He just wanted to turn into an illusion with Morgana, and then stay together forever to study the void and the truth of the universe together. Morgana couldn't understand and didn't believe this kind of thing. She pursued freedom, decadence and enjoyment. Spiritual love. Can you believe it? Her fear also came from this. Death Carl became an illusion. Without this kind of desire and need, God knows how much and how long his love for her can last. Without this kind of emotional maintenance, what kind of love is it? So it became like this now. Morgana felt that she was courting death. She often worried that Death Carl would kill her without saying a word. Death Carl licked her all the time. He didn't get angry when he was scolded, and he didn't care about being blackmailed for resources. Anyway, there were plenty. I understand, Queen Morgana, I will do it as soon as possible. Death Carl said helplessly. Then Morgana hung up the communication. Luther didn't expect to run into the Demon Queen while walking down the street. Of course, she should be called Liang Bing now. Luther could recognize her directly without even using his super brain to search for her. Luther looked at Morgana with envy. He was not envying the greatest evil in the universe, but Morgana's technology. Morgana, who had just upgraded to the 4th generation divine body, did not have the characteristics of the sacred atom that could not be destroyed by a supernova explosion. After all, Morgana needed to solve the divine body for transportation, and her atoms could not be made so indestructible, which would only increase the difficulty and resource consumption of wormhole transportation. As we all know, the demon civilization is the poorest civilization in the known universe, and Morgana is also the poorest main god. She can't afford to burn so much money. Although there is a licking dog, Morgana has a very stiff relationship with the death god Carl. Morgana generally doesn't want to deal with the death god Carl. For Luther, wormhole transportation technology can be learned or not. He is interested in the 4th generation divine body technology. Even if the 5th generation divine body comes out later, the gold content is still higher in the 4th generation divine body technology. Judging from Hua Yi's performance, there is no qualitative change, so it is very likely to be 4.5 generations, and he himself said that it is barely a 5th generation body. What Luther lacks is just an idea and a technical threshold, and he can solve the rest with his super brain. Should we capture Morgana for research? This is what Luther is thinking now. He has no good feelings towards Morgana, and he will not look at her with new eyes or pity her just because she is extremely evil. Even if this world is not his previous world, Luther is still very unhappy to see Morgana casually killing people. Of course, if it were people from farm tools and other countries, Luther would not have such a big opinion on Morgana. He can even recommend the Demon Queen to go to the small island across the sea, where there are many people. None of this has happened yet, but it doesn't prevent me from using her for experiments. Luther was moved. Morgana is now at her strongest and weakest. The strongest because she has just upgraded to the 4th generation of divine body, which is her strongest ever. The weakest is because demon number 1 is not here. Morgana can only rely on her own gene engine system to fight. Without the support of demon number 1, a celestial level supercomputer, it is difficult to say whether Morgana has become stronger or weaker than her heyday. And with Luther's strength, he doesn't need to worry about turning over. Just kidding, a Kryptonian with a combat power of 500,000, how can he turn over when fighting a weakened demon queen? Keelan, it's late now, I'll take you back. Luther suddenly said to Keelan. You want to take me back so soon? Keelan was stunned, and then asked in confusion. If you don't want to go back, we can still go shopping for a while. Luther said with a smile. Do you have something to do? Keelan said very considerately. Then I can take a taxi back by myself. How can I let you take a taxi home by yourself? I don't trust you. Luther has locked Morgana's aura. Although he is a little impatient, it is still most important to accompany his wife. Keelan saw that Luther didn't look like anything was wrong, but she was worried that Luther really had something wrong, so she sat in Luther's car and was sent back home. See you tomorrow. Keelan took the initiative to kiss Luther. She thought she would kiss something greasy, but she found that Luther's mouth was very fresh, not like he had just eaten barbecue. She watched Luther the whole time, and she didn't see him secretly go to the toilet to brush his teeth. I can only say that it was very good, and Keelan had a very good experience. See you tomorrow, wife. Luther said with a smile. He himself had a biological force field and was spotless, but Keelan was not. It was impossible for super gene warriors to keep clean at all times, unless they didn't eat or drink. They didn't have the function of self-cleaning. After Keelan went home, Luther turned around and left. Transform. Luther performed the transformation technique, pure white short hair and eyebrows, and his face also changed in the brow bone and other aspects, looking more three-dimensional and more modeled. Compared with his previous appearance, the difference is very big. It's not that he wasn't handsome before. His previous appearance was formed by self-carving after genetic optimization. Now, he simply modified some details on this basis and became a completely different person. He also used this face and body shape when meeting he/she. This is not the transformation technique of the Southern Transformation Kindergarten, but one of the magic in Dragon Ball, which is used for transformation and disguise. The effect in all aspects is much better than that of the Southern Transformation Kindergarten. Relying on the perception of Morgana's aura, Luther moved to Morgana's side in an instant. Morgana was enjoying the nightlife and observing the situation of Blue Star at this time, holding a skewer in her hand. Luther's appearance was very sudden, and there was no fluctuation of the wormhole. Morgana couldn't react at all, and then Luther grabbed her face. Then Luther appeared on Mars with Morgana. Boom! Morgana was thrown to the ground by Luther. Morgana's body was deformed by this blow, but she recovered quickly. After all, she was the fourth generation of divine body. What happened? Morgana immediately activated her genetic system to detect what had just happened and the dark plane information. But Luther didn't give her the time. Qigong wave. Luther stretched out one hand and aimed at Morgana, then a Qigong wave instantly shoveled away tens of millions of tons of soil from the surface of Mars. A bright light appeared on the entire surface of Mars, and the terrifying energy explosion even destroyed the continuous Martian storm on Mars. The atmosphere was heated by the ultra-high temperature generated by the explosion, causing the temperature and surface temperature of Mars to rise by hundreds of degrees Celsius. When the explosion subsided, a huge East African rift valley appeared in front of Luther. The Angel's flame bombardment can easily destroy the third-generation peak beast body, let alone the more destructive Qi. Luther walked to the depths of the East African Rift Valley, where the demon queen Morgana was. She only had the upper torso left, and the lower body was completely destroyed by Qi. Who are you? If Morgana hadn't moved out her two demon claws in time to block it, her entire torso would be gone now, because Luther was aiming at her torso. It's a pity that even so, Morgana's two demon claws were scarred and broken. This made Morgana's scalp tingle after seeing it. You know, this pair of demon claws is Morgana's signature weapon, which can go head-on with the silver wings in the Holy Kesha's arsenal. It is probably a dark silver weapon, but it was destroyed like this. Theoretically, only a god-killing solar flare bombing could cause such damage. After all, Suyin has not yet reached an indestructible level and will still be destroyed in the face of solar flare bombing. That moment just now had the power of a god-killing solar flare bombing, but Morgana's gene engine system did not detect any nuclear fusion effects or dark energy reactions. This was something Morgana couldn't react to after being slow to react. Reason. The gods and super warriors of the super seminary are too dependent on their own genetic engine systems and supercomputer bonuses. In their view, most attacks without dark energy fluctuations are not worthy of attention. Morgana's expression was ugly. She didn't know when she had provoked such a strong guy. Demon Queen Morgana, the main god of the demonic civilization, I am here for your technology. Luther knew that Morgana's missing torso had been destroyed by him. Without Demon 1, Morgana would not be able to recover. Even with Demon 1, she has no resources and can't repair herself. This is the disadvantage of the 4th generation divine body. The strength of the divine body is too high. Even if it absorbs energy and recovers materials, the demand is much more than that of the 3rd generation divine body. Just look at Angel Yan, dragging a 3rd generation divine body half dead. It's because there's not enough energy. For the queen's skills, Morgana was startled. This seemed too normal, so much so that Morgana never thought of this possibility at first. Nonsense, the demonic civilization is still a super divine civilization. There are only so many super divine civilizations in the known universe. Morgana herself has just been upgraded to the 4th generation divine body, so Morgana never expected that anyone would rob the demonic civilization. On the head. Oh, now there is. It's your uncle's job to rob, right? Morgana cursed. Then she was hit in the face by one of Luther's Qigong bullets. Boom. Morgana was thrown away and almost fell to the ground, but was saved by her devil's claws. Your computing power is no longer enough to react and use the devil's claw to resist my attack, so before I want to completely destroy you because of your bad breath, keep quiet and hand over the things. Luther said calmly. Queen, how can I trust that you won't turn your back and kill someone after you get the goods? Morgana said coldly. Then do you want the demonic civilization to be completely extinct, or are you betting that your old lover has a backup of your dark plane information? But will it still be you who is resurrected like that? Luther didn't answer at all, and the light of Qigong waves lit up on his hand. Morgana already knows how terrifying this energy is. It can destroy the divine body easily, almost like a solar flare bombing. More importantly, it is very secretive to activate. There are no dark energy fluctuations or nuclear fusion reactions, which makes people caught off guard. And Luther has the ability to completely destroy her. This left Morgana at a loss as to what to do. She wanted to secretly contact the god of death, Karl, but this method of using secret communication in front of others might not make the other person look like a fool. Queen, I don't have that much information. All my information is on Demon 1. Morgana decided to coax Luther and give her a chance to contact the god of death, Karl. When the time comes, that guy, Karl, the god of death, will definitely have a way to deal with Luther. Wrong answer. Luther raised his hand and fired. Hey, wait a minute. Morgana quickly wanted to beg for mercy, but Luther still fought out. This Qigong wave directly destroyed Morgana's devil's claws, allowing this pair of devil's claws to accompany Morgana for an unknown length of time. Broken into slag. Depend on. Morgana's eyes were red, she was heartbroken, her big baby was gone. As for her body being partially destroyed by the explosion again, Morgana couldn't care less. She lay weakly on the ground and angrily said that Luther was not a human being, more evil than the devil, and more devil than the devil. Then he stepped on the back of her head with one foot. Last chance, Luther said with a smile. Kill the queen if you can. Morgana became angry and spoke directly to Luther. Goodbye then. Luther held a huge Qigong wave in his hand. You're serious? Morgana was scared, mainly because Luther had shown a decisive attitude from the beginning to the present, and he did what he said without any hesitation. Only Karl, the god of death, knew about her upgrade to the 4th generation divine body, so it couldn't have been planned by Luther. This guy was really not afraid of killing her and leaving her with nothing. She originally wanted to let the god of death, Karl, use the dark plane information backup data to resurrect her later, as Luther said, but Morgana was afraid of what the god of death, Karl, would do to her. Wouldn't she just let the god of death, Karl, slaughter her? Vote. Click. Surrender. Morgana voted without saying a word. Luther didn't speak, and Morgana was frightened. Don't test my patience. Luther finally suppressed his murderous intention temporarily. Anyway, Morgana will still die when the deal is completed. Luther didn't mind sending Morgana on her way as it was a simple matter. Morgana breathed a sigh of relief, but she also felt unhappy that she was scared by Luther. She was not afraid of death, she just didn't want the demon civilization to disappear like this, or be controlled by Karl, the god of death. Then Morgana was forced to hand over her information, but because Luther did not build his own dark plane, he had no interface to receive it. It's not impossible for the superbrain to receive it. The problem is that gods like Morgana have not considered this situation, so either the gene engine system receives it or the supercomputer receives it. There is no brain link to transmit the data. How about going to my demon? No. 1. I promise that I will never have any bad intentions. Morgana said to Luther carefully. Who is this? She didn't build her own dark plane, and she refused to open the gene engine system and supercomputer to receive data. So what can she do? No, just show me everything you know. Luther quickly found a way to use his superbrain to memorize Morgana's information and techniques. Morgana was speechless. Are you too careful? With so much information and technology, how long will it take for me, Queen, to show you all? She also thought Luther was wary of her invading his gene engine system and supercomputer. Little did he know that Luther had no such thing at all. Just do it, Luther said angrily. Morgana had no choice but to do as she was told and used her last energy to project the display content. Then, she was surprised to find that Luther's learning speed was beyond imagination, or that he was very capable of using his own supercomputer and gene engine system. You know, learning and data transmission are not the same thing. Learning also includes reading comprehension, and data transmission is just copying. Morgana was very surprised by the computing power of Luther's supercomputer and gene engine system. She transmitted so fast, and almost didn't know how many TB of data information per second, but Luther accepted it all, which showed that the computing power of his supercomputer and gene engine system was not worse than hers. What a concept! You know, Morgana is a 4th-generation divine body, and all the configurations have been upgraded. Even if she didn't dare to accept the overall operation of the god of death Karl, she transformed the 4th-generation divine body technology herself, and then completed the upgrade, so she might not have as high data as the template originally given by the god of death Karl. But the configuration of the 4th-generation divine body is not something that any 3rd-generation god can compare to. This is still within Morgana's acceptable range. Maybe the Kryptonian civilization is a little special. However, what shocked Morgana even more was that Luther would take the time to ask her a few key questions from time to time. If she didn't read and understand the previous information, she couldn't ask these questions. It was precisely because of this that Morgana was shocked. She had seen many powerful scientific research gods. Apart from others, the 2 most powerful scientific research gods in the known universe, including the missing space principle and the time god Jilin, were the most powerful. Morgana herself was also a very high-level scientific research god, but she was sure that even she and the death god Karl would not be able to understand and digest these materials so quickly when they first came into contact with them. With this ability to understand and digest knowledge, Luther himself is also one of the top scientific research gods in the known universe. Where did you come from, freak? Morgana said tremblingly. She began to tremble because of insufficient energy, not because of fear. At this point, Morgana already knew that she had no use value to Luther. The 4th-generation divine body was obtained by Luther, and she gave him the 4th-generation divine body technology of the big clock given by the death god Karl and her own 4th-generation divine body technology of the space-time wormhole. Facing the threat of death, Morgana had no choice. Her idea was that Luther would not be able to understand after getting it, and he would have to beg her for help. As a result, Luther was able to understand and digest it quickly. It seems that you already know your fate. Luther looked at Morgana calmly. Boom. Morgana wanted to scold Luther, but Luther naturally couldn't let her scold him. He was not a masochist and didn't have such a hobby and XP. As Morgana's voice stopped abruptly, a huge pit deep into the core of Mars appeared on the spot. Luther's Qigong wave was merciless, and he even secretly dispersed his atoms in other places on Mars because he was wary of Morgana. This wave covered hundreds of kilometers around. Supervision observed the changes in the surrounding atoms to ensure that the Qigong wave completely destroyed everything of Morgana. In this case, Even if Morgana is resurrected, it is not the complete resurrection of dark matter and dark data. Luther was thoughtful. The gods in the super seminary were not so easy to die. There are usually several ways to resurrect. For example, there is dark matter information resurrection, which means the material information of the self is retained in the dark plane. Pure dark data resurrection without dark matter does not retain dark matter, but only retains the resurrection of dark plane information data. Usually, gods will use this method to resurrect, because their dark plane information is everywhere. Then the Holy Kesha showed a new method that frightened Morgana in the original plot, which is to completely erase the dark data and dark plane information. That is, Morgana has forever lost the demon named Agu, who blocked the knife for her. Of course, if she herself is hit, she will disappear completely. Physical data resurrection means the resurrection of the data of the existing real plane without the operation of the dark plane. It is usually a method used by a civilization to resurrect its own gods and super soldiers. Even Agi, the clone, is almost the same, but Agi's resurrection is not complete. Backup data resurrection. This is the backup data stored in the supercomputer. The resurrection of the sub-biological engine of Angel Yan, Angel Juxin and Angel Juia is also similar. Luther was decisive in killing. He killed every time he saw her. Anyway, it was hard to say that the resurrected Morgana was the original Morgana. Luther himself did not believe this. At most, he could just treat her as Orochimaru, but the average Orochimaru was too disgusting. More importantly, Orochimaru had a weakness. If he killed too many, his soul would die. It would be difficult to completely wipe him out in the super seminary, especially when a god was prepared. You said Morgana was not prepared. How could it be possible? She had been hunted by Holy Kesha for so many years. If she had not been prepared, she would have been destroyed by Holy Kesha long ago. Does she dare to come to Blue Star again? Luther thought about this question. Logically speaking, with such a fierce god like him on Blue Star, Morgana should have stayed away. Maybe he changed the plot of Super Seminary. But Morgana was behind. No, there was a liquor under her crotch. It was hard to say that the god of death Karl would give up Morgana, the fragrant bait. He had prepared for many years to make Holy Kesha bow out, and he also linked up with the Fiery Sun civilization. It's just that the Liang civilization agreed to cooperate, but they will not appear in front of Holy Kesha. Holy Kesha relies on her unparalleled computing power, and her silver wing domain is everywhere she can see. In fact, it's even more exaggerated, because her silver wing domain can actually cover the range she can observe and perceive. Beyond visual range strikes are easy. She can send a starfate to hunt Morgana for several years. The starfate is just a dark silver weapon equipped with a god-killing engine. The specific wormhole transportation and operation are all done by she himself. Facing the silver wing domain, there are currently no gods and super soldiers in the known universe that can resist it. Luther is now studying the fourth generation of divine bodies, so he temporarily puts this problem aside, but it is certain that Morgana will still come. Then it will be fine to kill her again at that time. At this moment, Luther's eyes suddenly looked in the direction of the blue star. The light of the sun. Lena. He felt a huge breath of dark energy, full of the feeling of the rising sun, and the light was so bright that even his own cells became somewhat active. The amount of dark energy can directly distinguish the strength. After all, others can use 100 units of dark energy at a time and store 1000 units of dark energy, while you can only output 1 unit of dark energy at a time and store 10 units of dark energy. As the future main god of Liang civilization, Delena's dark energy reserves and output power are naturally very large. It's just that most of her permissions are locked by genetic locks. Even so, Delena still has the god-killing combat ability to burn the divine body. Lena has the ability to control the energy of the sun and can easily drive flare bombings. Its power is equivalent to that of N2 bombs. At the same time, the explosion does not produce nuclear radiation, but the lethality is enough to melt second-generation and lower-generation super soldiers, and it is also effective against third-generation super soldiers. Overwhelming striking power. Generally speaking, any super body that is not specifically designed to deal with explosions and high temperatures will be destroyed. At the same time, its destructive power has reached the atomic level, and it is a crushing blow to most of the third-generation divine bodies. This power can already destroy atoms. This is the highest technological crystallization of Liang star. And this is just radiation-free microflares. There are also microflare bombings and medium-sized flare bombings, as well as giant solar flare bombings and supernova bombings. In addition, Reina's final ability, solar incarnation, is not a destructive ability but nirvana rebirth. Because the ultimate meaning of the sunlight plan is not destruction but rebirth. When Lena awakens the incarnation of the sun, she will be promoted to a pure energy body life, that is, a stellar energy body. The above contents are all from the Legend of Heroes anime and the physical book novel, Legend of Kamigawa, Heroes of the Company 1, by Saul Alay, the setting of the Battle of Tianhe. Of course, it is important to note that the energy balls Lena usually uses to play with the Shongbing Company are not radiation-free microflares. Despite Reina's carelessness, in fact, she doesn't even use radiation-free microflares if she can. After all, she is not a sun god who is keen on destruction and destruction. As a Kryptonian, Luther is naturally very eager to get Lena. This is definitely not because he is greedy for her body, but because he is greedy for her skills. How on earth do we get the light of the sun? Luther quickly thought of several ways. First, knock Lena away and take her away, and then study Lena himself in the spiritual time room. Second, kidnap Lena and blackmail Liang civilization into handing over the information about the sun's light super gene and the stored copy of the sun's light super gene. Third, do nothing, wait for Liang civilization to die on its own, and then take advantage of it and take Lena into your pocket. Which one seems good? Luther thought for a while, but he had too many research projects on hand, and he was hiding in the spiritual time room to study Tyrina, so he probably couldn't bear the loneliness and boredom. More importantly, Luther didn't feel good about treating Lena like this. Why did he say that when he was watching the animation, he yelled that Lena was his wife? Forget it, let's solve the problem of merging Brawley and Doomsday first. Luther temporarily put aside his calculations against Lena. Your uncle's Carl, Morgana is resurrected. If there was no other way, Morgana didn't want to be resurrected, so she begged Luther for mercy and gave him the information about the fourth-generation divine body. But unexpectedly, Luther turned against him and refused to recognize him. Even Morgana herself often does this, but this time, she is no longer that old lady. This queen is happy, we are demons, we can do whatever we want to do. After it was his turn to be the weak one who was ravaged at will by the strong, who could not even guarantee his life, and who was destroyed with no place to reason. With the roles reversed, Morgana, who acted recklessly and unscrupulously, realized that it was wrong to kill people indiscriminately. Liang Bing, I have resurrected you after all, can't you be more polite? On a dead planet more than N light years away from the Earth, a man wearing a gay purple cloak said in a hoarse voice with a hint of helplessness. Call me Queen Morgana. Morgana said angrily. Yes, M's Morgana. Death God Carl said calmly. Your uncle Carl, you don't care about credibility with this thief. Morgana cursed directly. You said the Earth is lagging behind. Where is it lagging behind? Your queen, I have only been here for a short time, and I was raped. Tell me, how are you going to compensate me for my mental losses and medical expenses? Death God Carl looked at Morgana, who was already in the cultivation tank and was still cursing vigorously. Sorry, Liang Bing, I know you are scared, but here. Queen, I have no fear. Morgana interrupted Carl, the god of death. I actually don't know when Blue Star gained such a god. Carl, the god of death, continued. Go away, you have the big clock in your hand. Who are you kidding if you say you don't know? Morgana didn't believe the lies of Carl, the god of death. Liang Bing, resurrecting you is a huge resource. Death Carl said. I kicked your uncle Carl, and this queen even told me to call me Queen Morgana. I don't care, if you don't compensate me, then you can go play with Kesha by yourself. Morgana said sternly. Queen, I lost my mind and died once. Being resurrected by you probably requires you to do countless things. I'm afraid it's not all recorded on video. It's all round high definition. It's really scary to think about it. Do you know this feeling? Quote. Ms. Morgana, I wouldn't do anything like that. Death Carl said helplessly. If he really wanted to do it, wouldn't it be better to just make a Liang Bing figurine, or a one-to-one restored Apocalypse King Liang Bing template? Who knows you? Morgana snorted coldly. Well, let me think about it. Death Carl said helplessly. Kesha has been staring at me. I can't do anything too blatant. So, Morgana looked at Death Carl. I'll give you a dark plane. Death Carl took out a capsule. Dark plane positioning technology. Morgana reached out to take the capsule, and after injecting dark energy, she found that the capsule was located in a tightly encrypted dark plane. Hundreds of locking programs made Morgana stunned. Demon number 1 of the demon civilization did not have so many encryption programs. Death Carl set the first god or super soldier injected with dark energy as the highest authority in the dark plane, so Morgana did not need to unlock these programs and directly saw the large amount of resources inside. These resources are enough for her to revive all her subordinates again, and even remake her own demon claws. You have to know that the death god Carl had actually given her the resources to resurrect his subordinates before, not to mention the resources to upgrade the 4th generation divine body once and to resurrect a 4th generation divine body and reshape it. More importantly, this is a dark plane. I'm afraid that in the entire Super Seminary universe, only the Death Song Academy and the Angel Civilization have the generosity to give others the dark plane. So Morgana was very satisfied and didn't say anything. Even though this dark plane didn't have much construction, Morgana would feel more at ease. Death God Carl also knew this, so he gave Morgana a dark plane that had not been built. Your uncle's Carl, why don't you build this dark plane? However, even though he had done a good job and it was in line with Morgana's wishes, Morgana still confronted him without any hesitation. Liang Bing, can we talk about reason? Death God Carl said helplessly. Go to your uncle, Queen, I am a demon, what reason can a demon talk about? Morgana cursed. Death God Carl. Fortunately, Death God Carl knew very well that Morgana was not crazy, she was just venting her anxiety and fear. The two have known each other for so many years, and Death God Carl can complete the modeling of Morgana in his mind with his eyes closed, and it is the kind that is clear in every detail. Naturally, he also knows Morgana's thinking mode and psychology very well. The fleet of Teoti has arrived at Blue Star. As long as you hide yourself well, there should be no danger. Death God Carl said to Morgana gently. Not enough, Queen, I was robbed and killed, I don't feel safe enough. Morgana bargained. How about this, I still have a peak beast body on Blue Star. With it to help you block the knife, you will be safer. Death God Carl said. Peak beast body, you still have such a good thing hidden. Morgana didn't expect that she could really squeeze oil out of the stone by squeezing it. Of course, she didn't know that Death God Carl was not a stone, but a super oil field that would spray tens of millions of tons of oil once it was dug. I will arrange Snow and Teoti to activate and reshape Crocodile God Sotone. Death God Carl said calmly. The reason why he handed Crocodile God Sotone to Morgana was, on the one hand, he was worried about Morgana's safety and to ensure the next plan, and on the other hand, he really didn't expect someone to rob the Demon Queen. More importantly, the Demon Queen's 4th generation divine body was destroyed, and she couldn't escape. The other party was very strong in hiding and keeping secrets of dark plane information, and the god of death Carl couldn't read any of his dark information. He suspected that Luther might have mastered the dark plane information erasure technology similar to his own. Carl, that guy from Krypton civilization, can you really not read his dark plane information? After Morgana got the benefit, she finally put aside her aggressiveness and began to discuss their plan. She felt that the biggest change was Luther, who claimed to be from Krypton civilization. His origin was unknown, his strength was strong, and the speed of digesting the 4th generation divine body technology made him a top-level scientific research god. He might be at the same level as Carl and himself. There is a certain difference between the main god of civilization and the king level. The former is the main god of a civilization, but it is also divided into scientific research gods and combat gods, etc. It cannot be said that the configuration of the main god is worse than that of the general god body. If you can become the main god of civilization, then the configuration must be the best in the entire civilization. It's just the best configuration of your own civilization. As for the king level, There are only a few recognized king levels in the known universe, and this is the reputation and prestige that has been earned. In other words, the main god of civilization is not equal to the king level, but the king level is basically the main god of civilization. The current situation is that an unknown king level combat power appeared on Blue Star. Morgana and the god of death Carl don't know whether he saw Morgana passing by and robbed her, or what he planned to do on Blue Star. The big clock can't locate his existence, so naturally there is no way to try to read his dark plane information. The god of death Carl said calmly. If it can provide positioning, the big clock has a great chance of reading the other party's dark plane information. After all, he has not seen a celestial level supercomputer that can compete with the big clock, let alone a mere third-generation god body. Even if the other party is a top scientific research god, it is no exception. What should we do? What if he is still on Blue Star? Will it affect our plan? Keisha, that fool, has a much better reputation in the known universe than us. Morgana said unhappily. After discussing and Morgana restored all the conversation information of Luther, they have roughly speculated that this Kryptonian civilization that they have not calculated and discovered in the known universe is likely to be a super god civilization existing in the fringe space. It is not clear why the super god civilization in the fringe space has a main god running to the known universe, but they are very sure that the other party will definitely investigate the situation in the known universe first. In addition, unlike the situation in the fringe space that cannot be calculated and measured, as long as there is a celestial level supercomputer better than the Dino 3, it is no problem to calculate and collect most of the information. In terms of reputation alone, the angel civilization is definitely one of the best. Morgana is worried that Luther will help Keisha and make friends with this main god. He can't help Keisha. As long as everything goes well, the curtain call of the holy Keisha is destined. The god of death Carl shook his head. It is impossible for a king level to affect his operation of destroying Keisha without knowing the information. Then it will be my turn after Kesha's curtain call, right? Morgana sneered, and became more and more wary of the confidence of the god of death Carl. At the same time, she decided to dismantle herself after returning to Demon Number 1, and then use the materials to reshape the fourth generation of the body. Even if the god of death Carl repeatedly assured that he had not done anything, and Morgana's own gene engine system and supercomputer did not calculate any problems, she still did not believe the god of death Carl. I won't do that, respected Queen Morgana. The god of death Carl helplessly assured again. Humph, it's better to do this. If everything goes well, that Keisha will be eliminated. What if it doesn't go well? I can't deal with or stop that guy, and my men can't either. Morgana continued. Let's talk about it then, maybe he will become our helper. The god of death Carl didn't think he would definitely become an enemy. Isn't it just that Morgana was destroyed once? It's not a big deal. In the face of interests, there is no complete enemy. Turning enemies into friends is the most appropriate thing for the god of death Carl. He doesn't want to use his few void engines and void warriors for this. However, the death god Carl could trade the fourth generation divine body technology and materials with Luther. He only got the technology, but the materials were not so easy to get. Carl, the god of death, was very sure that even if Luther had the support of the entire Kryptonian civilization, it would be a miracle to develop a super god civilization in the edge space. If materials were collected, it would be impossible to calculate the edge space. Easy to collect materials. It is estimated that collecting materials can only rely on people to find them, and the efficiency is too slow. The marginal space is said to be space, but in fact it can also be called the unknown universe. Like the known universe, it is both huge and boundless. You want to trade with him? I'm going to kill your Uncle Carl. I absolutely don't agree. After Morgana heard about the plan of Carl, the god of death, she immediately went crazy. My mother was destroyed once by Luther, and the mighty demon queen was robbed. This kind of thing was bad enough, but Carl, the god of death, actually said that he wanted to cooperate with Luther. Calm down, Queen Morgana, this is the best way. He has no reason to fight with us, and he may not know Kesha's silver wing domain. Cal, the god of death, comforts Morgana. You mean to trick the grandson into dying in front of Kesha? Morgana reacted when she was told this, which was profound. Yes, why didn't she expect that Luther knew that the reputation of the angel civilization was very good, and that it was already the information that a celestial-level supercomputer could calculate and collect? No one in the known universe would tell anyone about the invincible silver wing domain of Holy Kesha. It is even more impossible to collect dark plane information in this regard. Angel's dark plane information erasure technology is not bad either. It should be called attracting Kesha's attention. Cal the Reaper corrected. Just block the knife. Why are you so grand? But how are you going to fool that guy? Morgana despised the words of Death God Carl, and then asked quickly. Cooperating with Luther, if she could trick this guy to death, it would be extremely exciting for Morgana. Moreover, if they bring in a king-level player, the success rate of their plan will be much more likely. Didn't he just get the 4th-generation divine body technology from you? Even if he can understand and master it, he definitely doesn't have the materials for the 4th-generation divine body. Death Carl said. After all, the 4th-generation divine body involves the transformation of atoms. You can imagine how sophisticated and precious this material is. Only the Angel Civilization and the Death Song Academy in the known universe are so rich and powerful that they can afford several copies. Do you still have the materials for the 4th-generation divine body? Morgana was immediately concerned. It's gone. I can still make up a portion of the rest. After all, I only used 2 portions just for you. Death God Carl said calmly that he had no plans to give Morgana another 4th-generation god. It was not that he disliked Morgana. If Morgana was willing to turn into a phantom body, Death God Carl would sell everything to get the materials. Really, Morgana didn't believe it. Of course it's true. Carl, the god of death, repeated expressionlessly. HMPH, you'd better not lie to me. However, if that guy completes the upgrade after getting the materials, wouldn't there be more variables? What if he turns his back on me and refuses to recognize me? Morgana asked. Don't worry, I will arrange all these. Death Carl said. Meanwhile, on Earth, Luther looked at the tube of liquid in front of him. Super gene, completed. Luther was extremely excited. This time, the Doomsday cells were enhanced Doomsday cells, and the biomass computer created perfectly accommodated Brawley's genes. The reason why the 2 genes could not be fused before was that Doomsday could continue to adapt and Brawley could continue to evolve. In the end, Doomsday adapted to Brawley's genes and obliterated Brawley's genes. In other words, the Doomsday gene turned into the immune system in the end, treating the Brawley gene as a virus and killing it. Now, super genetic technology has solved Luther's problem. Moreover, the performance of the Doomsday biomass computer far exceeds that of the dark matter computer, giving Luther the ability to observe the dark plane and dark energy drive. Dark energy driving technology and abilities are not available to all super genes. Neither the original super genes nor ordinary super genes have them. Among other things, dark energy drives the transformation of biological energy, allowing a living body to punch with an impact force of 1,000 tons, jump more than 10 meters high, and run at a speed of 100 meters per second. This is the most basic way to drive and use dark energy. The original super gene is usually converted into light energy. Just like the Teoti civilization, a dignified aerospace-level civilization still uses light energy barrier technology. Only Angel's battleships have dark energy barrier technology or even more advanced space-time barrier technology. More common than dark energy drive technology is stellar energy drive technology, followed by nuclear fusion, light energy, etc. However, the power quality of dark energy is definitely not as good as Chi, but for Luther, there is an additional channel for dark energy to convert nuclear energy and light energy. If the algorithm for converting dark energy into fusion effect can be obtained from Delana, it will be better. Can produce fusion energy. Of course, what's more important is stellar energy drive technology. Luther injected the super gene into his body, and then he began to suffer unbearably. Renewal at the cell level is very painful and intense, especially for such intense super genes as Doomsday and Brawley. Luther simply made his pain nerves temporarily ineffective, but he could see that his body began to break in large areas, old flesh and blood fell to the ground, and new flesh and blood grew out at a speed visible to the naked eye. Luther felt a force surging out of his body. What a powerful feeling. It was so strong that just moving his hands and feet could cause a sonic boom. That was because his nerve reflex speed was too fast now. The nerve reflex speed included the speed of limb movement and brain reaction speed. If this speed was improved, it would be like the world slowing down in front of your eyes. Luther unfolded his biological force field, which instantly covered the entire celestial empire. It's a little worse than Superman's biological force field that can drag the Earth. Before, Luther's biological force field could only work within 1 meter of its own range. A biological force field that can subvert physical laws and effects and can be called a reality distortion is of course the larger the range, the better. Superman can do a series of incredible operations, such as dragging the Earth because his biological force field covers the Earth. Otherwise, even if he has such strength, he can't drag the Earth, but will only pull the Earth to pieces. Now he is the legendary Super Doomsday Kryptonian. The legendary Super Doomsday Kryptonian should be comparable to Super Kryptonian Hale. No, he should be stronger than him, except that he does not have as many superpowers as him. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.